Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start a new series today. We finished up in Philippians last week, and I want to look at a new series in the book of Nehemiah. We're going to look at that story to think about the idea of victorious Christian living. In the first installment of a series of circulars entitled The American Crisis, published on December 23rd, 1776, Thomas Paine started with these famous words. He said, "These are the times that try men's souls." Now, we've heard those words before. He was talking about the difficulties they faced in the struggle for American independence in the Revolutionary War. And in the face of such adversity, Thomas Paine said that some would demonstrate their character, that you would see their character in their cowardice, that they would run and hide and they would not be able to stand up to what was happening, while for others their character would be demonstrated in their courage to stand and persevere and to fight for freedom. And he says this, he says, "What we gain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly." What we gain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. We value the lessons that are forged from our difficulties and our trials, the things that we really paid a high price to learn. We value those lessons. So God allows us the opportunity to build our character from adversity, from difficulties, from trials, rather than allowing those adversities to rob our character or destroy our character or take our moral fabric away from us. Nehemiah lived in a time of crisis, in a time of exile, and he went into a time of a national crisis as well. His people were either living as refugees in Babylon like him, or they had returned to a destroyed and broken down Jerusalem where everything was in ruins. The crisis that would try his soul and test his character was something that had to do with his love for his nation. And as this crisis hit, he had to ask the question, would he just run from it? Would he hide from this adversity? Or would he let God use it to shape his character and to build his faith? For us today, right now, it's also a time of crisis. It's a time of all kinds of crisis all around it, whether it's here in this country, whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's in our homeland of Armenia, whether it's in Lebanon, whether it's in Syria, economic crisis, health crisis, relational crisis, vocational crisis, pandemic, relationships, all these challenges. And all of these things are trying to forge our character. They're going to change our character one way or another. They're going to try our lives. Times like this become an opportunity or an excuse. An opportunity to rise to higher levels of courage, character, faithfulness, victory, honor, morality, or an excuse to sink to the lowest levels of fear, self-loathing, hopelessness, anger, divisiveness, hurtfulness, and defeat. So for these coming weeks, we're going to look through the book of Nehemiah, see how he dealt with crisis, and see how we maybe can have victory in the midst of these things. So Nehemiah 1, the first 3 verses say this. "The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men. And I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. And they said to me, 'Those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and distress. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and the gates have been burned with fire.'" So here's Hananiah's problem. He's living in captivity in Babylon. And in that situation, those people living in Babylon longed to hear the stories of how things were going back in Jerusalem with those who either went back or with those who managed to not be taken into captivity? How are things going in the homeland? Just like we think of our homeland, or we think of other places around the world. And Nehemiah's brother returns with this terrible news. He says, you know what? Things are not going very well. The wall that they were rebuilding, it's been torn down. It's down to the ground. And by the way, the gates, they've been burned away. Nothing's left. The place is in ruins. And Nehemiah is devastated. He knows that his people will not survive much longer without a proper defense around the city. Now, he could have just enjoyed life in Babylon. He could have said, well, that's it. Nah, I live in Babylon. Okay, nothing else. Or he could respond with character and faith to the needs of his people. What would he do? Would this adversity crush him or make him a stronger, better person? So that's a question I want to leave with you today. As we just start this series on Nehemiah, I want you to ask yourself in your prayer time, what has been your track record with adversity, with difficulties, even with crisis, even with tragedy in your life? How have you dealt with it in the past? Have you resorted to anger, fear, blame, self-recrimination, transference, the things, the diversion, putting things off? Or have you let God build character in you and use adversity to strengthen your faith? That's all I want you to think about today as you pray. What has been your track record, and what can you do in the future? And what are some of those adversities right now? What are some of those things that are challenging you right at this moment in this day, so that as you think and pray, you can give those to God and let him use them to build you up into a better Christian and to have spiritual victory in your life. God bless you and have a great time in prayer this morning.